Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Emil Ahangarzadeh, and I'm very excited about the next few modules in this course as they're about a topic that I find fascinating: gamification. Now, in this module's scholarly reading, you'll see the clear connection between this concept of gamification and education. So I'm not going to spend this lecture summarizing that correlation because you'll read about it in this module, and we'll get into it more so in subsequent modules. But basically, the proposition is that applying gamification techniques and game thinking to the educational curriculum has the potential to help motivate and engage today's learners if it's done right. So, what is it? Gamification. It's not really that obvious. It's a new and burgeoning field that's being applied heavily in the business arena, and thanks to its attributed success, it's being applied in other arenas as well, like education. So one of the things we'll be doing throughout these next few modules is defining what gamification is, but we'll also consider what it isn't. For example, it's not a panacea. That is, that it's not going to solve all our students' engagement or motivation challenges. In fact, it may not even be effective in meeting your particular needs when it comes to behavior modification. So you should approach what we're going to be exploring with a healthy dose of skepticism. So let's get going by honing in on a definition of the concept. There are plenty of definitions available in the literature today. The one I'll be working with is captured by Dr. Kevin Warbach of the University of Pennsylvania. I've learned much of what I know about the field from him, as well as a few others whom you'll meet throughout these next modules. Warbach says that gamification is the use of game elements and game design techniques in non-game contexts. Now we'll get deeper into what game elements and game design techniques are, but if you're anything like me, examples paint a much brighter picture than words ever will, so let's start there. One of the most successful deployments of gamification rests with the US Army. That's right. They developed a free multiplayer tactical shooter game where people get into squads and go hunting in some pretty realistic settings. The system is called America's Army, and it's still in heavy use today. Now you might be saying to yourself, I thought gamification is when you apply game elements to non-game contexts. It is, because the whole purpose of this game has very little to do with you playing the game and everything to do with recruiting for the army. I mean the real army. So before you get started, you have to join the online army by providing all of your identifying details, which is surprisingly similar to step one in a recruitment process. By achieving certain scores, you'll level up. And each time you level up, you get a medal. Of course, you can see the correlation, right? You get more medals, you start thinking, I'm pretty good at this army thing. Now I'm not sure, but I think that there's actually chat capacity. So you can start to make connections with others around the country and get the sense of team play going. And next thing you know, you start thinking, this army thing might be just right for me. So the game, America's Army, isn't so much a game as it is a recruitment tool. Here's another example. Club Psych. There's a TV show named Psych that runs on the USA Network that wasn't doing very well in viewership back in 2010. So in consultation with a gamification firm, they set out to expand their audience and deepen engagement to increase the impressions online and on air for the TV show by leveraging the existing content and fans' social networks to drive market and revenue growth. So they created Club Psych. It's a loyalty program that lives online, and it entices fans to earn points as they interact with the website by doing things like browsing a photo gallery of stills from the show, reposting content from the website onto their Facebook wall, or watching short videos of behind-the-scenes type stuff, maybe playing simple games that have a psych theme to them, and so forth. But they went beyond that. They reward fans who check in using a mobile app that they built named Psych Vision. They check in before, they check in during, and after the show. And then these fans enter a secret keyword that shows up during the broadcast. So they allowed fans to redeem these points for mugs, for bobbleheads of the show's characters. And as a result of all of these efforts, the show, Psych, it's now USA Network's longest running series. Club Psych has a 30,000 membership. The show got a 40% increase in viewership and a nearly 50% spike in online merchandise sales. So as you can see, we're talking about using game-based ideas or elements to achieve a purpose or motivate people to behave in a certain way. Are you seeing the connection to the education thing? These elements include lots of things like achieving points. When you do something that's desirable, you get points. If you do something that's not desirable, you lose points. Sound familiar? You can level up. That is, when you achieve a certain number of points, you move up a level. And the higher you level up, the greater your capabilities become. And then once you go up a certain number of levels, you're awarded a badge, which is just a little image of something. And that badge signifies your status in the game world and maybe even unlocks other capacities. You can go on quests. So you're given a mission to fulfill that sets a defined goal for you and possibly others that you're playing with to achieve. And you can keep track of your progress toward completing the quest thanks to a nifty little progression bar that tells you how far you've come along. And of course, every time you see that little progression bar isn't at 100%, something instinctual kicks in and pushes you to close that circle, like, gotta get 100%. Here, let me do this other thing that'll push my progression bar along, like visit this page or provide that information. So we've discussed game elements and we briefly mentioned the idea of non-game contexts. What's important to distinguish here is that with gamification, the user might be still playing a game. It's just that the purpose of the game design or the gamified program is not just to have fun playing a game. It's about altering or shaping a particular behavior by the game player or the program participant. So like the example I gave earlier of the America's Army game, yes, the people are playing games, but the real purpose of the game designers is to recruit the players by providing them with a context-based experience wherein they feel successful so that they'll more likely consider joining the Army. After all, if you're so good at the game that you achieve a Medal of Honor, you might think that you'll be able to achieve the same medals if you were part of the actual Army, right? It's a motivation tool and it shapes the behavior of the person. Same thing with Club Psych program. Once you start down the path of collecting points, the human psyche can't help but want to collect more points. And if you can do that by watching the show to find out what the secret password is, then you'll watch the show, right? So the examples I've pointed to thus far are business-oriented. They're about recruiting soldiers or expanding audiences. But the same psychological principles apply even in non-business oriented settings. For example, in context of encouraging recycling or exercising more often, or by supporting philanthropic projects, or maybe perhaps in education. Games are incredibly powerful tools. At some point or another, we've all been addicted to some form of a game, be it poker or Monopoly or Halo or Tic-Tac-Toe or Dungeons and Dragons or Candy Crush or Farmville or basketball or football, you name it. What makes games so engaging and allows them to support advanced thinking and sophisticated learning is worth deep study by educators. They can study the psychology of motivation. What makes someone want to play a game and win? How can we integrate game design to leverage its motivational constructs for our students? Then there's today's amazing network information technologies. They allow us to create rich, creative, personalized experiences and track interactions in real time and aggregate and analyze those interactions for use in shaping behavior. All of these ideas, when they're mixed together, they yield the potential for designing experiences for students that can motivate them to reach beyond their own perceptions of what they're capable of. Using game-based operations as a tool to motivate or shape particular behavior, it's been around for a long time. Dr. Werbach actually reminded us of the old Cracker Jacks box that actually came out in 1902 that had the little toys hidden in them. I don't know about you, but I recall many a time just tearing those boxes open to taste a bit of that caramelly goodness and to see what surprise may lay in the box. I wonder if I was more interested in the toy or in the snack. I wonder if my interest in the surprise toy enhanced my love for the snack. Honestly, I don't know. There's a really interesting text that I'd suggest you look into named What Video Games Have to Teach Us About Learning and Literacy by Arizona State professor James Paul Gee. The thesis of the book focuses on how games encode knowledge creation mechanisms in their players. It's really interesting. You might find it a fascinating read. There have been many interesting movements as related to gamification and learning, such as the Serious Games Initiative and the Games for Change program. Serious games are normally simulation-based experiences wherein the player is tasked with solving a problem. You see them in fields like emergency management or military operations like war games and so forth. Games for Change was a movement that sprang out about 2004 with the sole purpose of creating and distributing games that brought about some form of social impact, whether it was humanitarian or educational in nature, you name it. These types of games teach systems thinking. They promote understanding of complex issues through an entertaining and engaging series of experiences. But it wasn't until 2010 that gamification took off in its modern tense. Jesse Schell of the Schell Games organization provided a keynote presentation at the DICE conference. His talk inspired thousands of people to imagine the possibilities for applying game mechanics in various ways. Same thing with Jane McGonigal. In the same year, she gave a TED Talk about how games make us better and how they can change the world. Take a look at these two videos.
Oh, and so, but now here's a question I'm going to put to you. Who do you think is designing these games? Skilled game designers? No, not really. Just like whoever's there is doing it. Imagine if skilled game designers get a hold of these kinds of things. Lee Sheldon is a great example. He's a game designer, some of you I'm sure know. He's teaching at University of Indiana now. And one of the first things he did was, you know what, this grading system kind of sucks. Because school's a game, right? You go, you get scores, you take, and you come out, there's a leaderboard, And he said, I'm going to do this better. He doesn't give out grades for each assignment. He gives out experience points. And you level up through the class. And so class attendance is up, class participation is up, homework is turned in often and better because it's a better structure, it's a better system. Imagine when the game designers get a hold of all this garbage, the gas points and the shopping points and your coffee points and your airline points, all these points and points and points. Imagine when they're all designed and when they can be sensed. And these things start to come together a little bit. Because sensors are what's happening now. That's what's changing things. Natal is going to come out. And it's got cameras. It's going to sense every joint of your body. The DSi is out. And it's got cameras and no one knows what they're for. But someone's going to figure it out. And technology keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And there's going to be sensors everywhere detecting so many things in your life. And these things are going to be able to be used for gameplay. So, we're moving on a road towards disposable technology. If anyone here ever bought a Furby, right? The Furby costs like $20, $30. It has more technology in it than they used to put a man on the moon. And many people have now thrown out their Furbies because it's kind of dumb and they throw it out. It's disposable technology. We're, before too long, going to get to the point where every soda can, every cereal box is going to be able to have a CPU, a screen, and a camera on board it, and a Wi-Fi connector so that it can be connected to the internet. And what will that world be like? Well, I think it'll be like this. You'll get up in the morning to brush your teeth, and the toothbrush can sense that you're brushing your teeth, and so, hey, good job for you. 10 points for brushing your teeth. And it can measure how long, and you're supposed to brush them for 3 minutes, and you did. Good job, you brushed your teeth for 3 minutes. And so you get a bonus for that. And, hey, you brushed your teeth every day this week, another bonus. And who cares? The toothpaste company, the toothbrush company, the more you brush, the more toothpaste you use, they have a vested financial interest. You go to breakfast, there's the cornflakes. On the back, there's a little web game that you can play. While you eat, instead of reading the back, you play a game while you eat your cornflakes. And you get that, and you get 10 points just for eating the cornflakes. And then it turns out you can see your list of friends who also have cornflakes and the scores that they got because you're Wi-Fi and Facebook connected and everything. And so, you get 5 bonus points because you just beat out one of your friends at the cornflakes game. So then you go and you get on the bus. The bus? Why am I taking the bus? You're taking the bus because the government has started giving out all kinds of bonus points to people who use public transportation. And you can use these points for tax incentives. And while you're sitting on the bus riding to work and you're playing your little Tetris and getting a few points here and there, you suddenly remember, I had this dream last night. I had a dream that my mother was dancing with this giant Pepsi can. And then you realize, oh yeah, the REMtertainment system, right, which is the thing you put in your ear and it can sense when you enter REM sleep. And then it starts putting little advertisements out there to try and influence your dreams. And then you can fill out a little form. It's a test to see if those things came through into your dreams. And if they did, then big points for you, right? And you can use these points at the grocery store or whatever. And you get to work on time, good job. Excellent. You got to work on time. And you get a special bonus, I don't know, for something else. Maybe because you've been there on time all week. And then there's your office mate. And he's like, check out, I got the new digital tattoo, right? It's a tattoo that you can change the image because it's got like e-ink in it in your arm, right? So you can change the image all the time to whatever you want. But a lot of people are using Tattoogle AdSense, right? And so he's got the ads up, and you're thinking, you're really dumb because Tattoogle AdSense has light sensors in it, and so that when your arm is covered, you're not going to get any money from people seeing the ads. And you show them how yours is lower on the arm, so it's more exposed, so you get more points for it. And just then, you realize that the two of you have your ads suddenly synchronized just by chance. And so, you say, link sync, and you get 30 points for noticing a link sync that the two of us had that. And he says, Pop-Tarts, because they're both Pop-Tart ads, and the system is listening, and it can tell that we said Pop-Tarts. And then we do high five, because the body electricity sensors can tell when you do a high five, and that's the rule. That's how the game works. That when the ads line up, because it makes you pay more attention to the ads, because that's how these games will work. The games will be tricking you to pay more attention to ads. So then you go to lunch, and you've had Dr. Peppers all week, and so you got to have another Dr. Pepper because you got 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, and then you have another one, and there's another one, but there's a special with Dr. Pepper this week. If you have 5 Dr. Peppers in a week, 500 bonus points, so you're definitely going to take advantage of that. And then you got a meeting at another building. It's a half a mile away, and you could take the shuttle over, but you decide, I'm going to walk because the health insurance plan that you're on gives you bonus points if you walk like more than a mile each day, and we can sense that easily, through your digital shoes. And if you get your heart rate up about a certain amount, then you get more bonus points from your health insurance company. So then you're going shopping on the way home. And man, this is like a place you can get a lot of points, and it's really complicated, so you don't figure it out. You let your app figure it out. It looks at all the point systems you have, it looks at what you want, and then it tells you which ones to buy in order to get, ooh, wow, a lot of points just because I make good choices shopping. And then you get home and your daughter's like, oh, I got my report card. And you're like, oh, good job. You're getting 2,000 points from the state for getting such good grades. And you're getting 5,000 as a parent from the Obama bonus for the good parenting bonus, which you're excited because you can use that as tax relief. And then you say, hey, wait a minute. Did you practice your piano? And she's like, yeah, I practiced my piano. Well, what score did you get? He's like, oh, well, I got 150,000. 150,000, that's the best you've ever had on that particular sonata. That's 9,000 points given by the Arts Council for your scholarship fund. So, go you, right? And then you go and watch television, and I don't even want to talk about this. It's just points. Because there's eye sensors, right, that can tell when you're watching the ads. So you want to watch the ads, certain ads especially, because you're going to get points for them. And your remote has a little screen on it and with a little camera, so you can kind of be live chat with other people are watching the show, and you play all these games, and you get all these points while you watch television. That would be a very natural thing to do. Then finally, the day's over. You're going to bed. You sit down with your new Kindle 3.0, which of course has the eye tracking sensor in it that can tell what you've read and how much you've read of the book. And it's important to read the whole book because then if you leave a review on Amazon, you'll get super bonus points if it knows you read the whole book through. And as you finish the book, you're very surprised. Oh, did I mention that Microsoft acquired Amazon a couple of years back? But they did. And you get an achievement unlocked. This thing's been tracking you for 20 years. You've finished 500 novels. And this is like a big achievement, and you're thinking, I'm really embarrassed that my 500th novel was this dumb Star Trek novel that I'm reading, because I'm going to remember that forever. And then you start thinking about all these achievements and points and things, and realizing that, you have no idea what books your grandparents read or where they went on their daily basis, but these sensors that we're going to have on us and all around us and everywhere are going to be tracking and watching what we're doing forever. And our grandchildren will know every book that we read. That legacy will be there. It will be remembered. And you get to thinking about how, wow, is it possible maybe that since all this stuff is being watched and measured and judged, that maybe I should change my behavior a little bit and be a little better than I would have been? And so it could be that these systems are just all crass commercialization and it's terrible, but it's possible that they'll inspire us to be better people if the game systems are designed right. Anyway, I'm not sure about all that, but I do know this stuff is coming. Man, it's got to come. What's going to stop it? And the only question I care about right now is who in this room is going to lead us to get there. Thank you.
I'm Jane McGonigal. I'm a game designer. I've been making games online now for 10 years, and my goal for the next decade is to try to make it as easy to save the world in real life as it is to save the world in online games. Now, I have a plan for this, and it entails convincing more people, including all of you, to spend more time playing bigger and better games. Right now, we spend 3 billion hours a week playing online games. Some of you might be thinking, that's a lot of time to spend playing games, maybe too much time, considering how many urgent problems we have to solve in the real world. But actually, according to my research at the Institute for the Future, it's actually the opposite is true. 3 billion hours a week is not nearly enough gameplay to solve the world's most urgent problems. In fact, I believe that if we want to survive the next century on this planet, we need to increase that total dramatically. I've calculated the total we need at 21 billion hours of gameplay every week. So that's probably a bit of a counterintuitive idea, so I'll say it again, let it sink in. If we want to solve problems like hunger, poverty, climate change, global conflict, obesity, I believe that we need to aspire to play games online for at least 21 billion hours a week by the end of the next decade. No, I'm serious. I am. Here's why. This picture pretty much sums up why I think games are so essential to the future survival of the human species. Truly. This is a portrait by a photographer named Phil Toledano. He wanted to capture the emotion of gaming, so he set up a camera in front of gamers while they were playing. And this is a classic gaming emotion. Now, if you're not a gamer, you might miss some of the nuance in this photo. You probably see the sense of urgency, a little bit of fear, but intense concentration, deep focus on tackling a really difficult problem. If you are a gamer, you will notice a few nuances here. The crinkle of the eyes up and around the mouth is a sign of optimism. And the eyebrows up is surprise. This is a gamer who's on the verge of something called an epic win. Now, oh, you've heard of that. OK, good. So we have some gamers among us. So an epic win is an outcome that is so extraordinarily positive, you had no idea it was even possible until you achieved it. It was almost beyond the threshold of imagination. And when you get there, you are shocked to discover what you're truly capable of. That's an epic win. This is a gamer on the verge of an epic win. And this is the face that we need to see on millions of problem solvers all over the world as we try to tackle the obstacles of the next century. The face of someone who, against all odds, is on the verge of an epic win. Now, unfortunately, this is more of the face that we see in everyday life now as we try to tackle urgent problems. This is what I call the I'm not good at life face. And this is actually me making it. Can you see it? Yes, good. This is actually me making the I'm not good at life face. This is a piece of graffiti in my old neighborhood in Berkeley, California, where I did my PhD on why we're better in games than we are in real life. And this is a problem that a lot of gamers have. We feel that we are not as good in reality as we are in games. And I don't mean just good as in successful, although that's part of it. We do achieve more in game worlds. But I also mean good as in motivated to do something that matters, inspired to collaborate and to cooperate. When we're in game worlds, I believe that many of us become the best version of ourselves, the most likely to help at a moment's notice, the most likely to stick with a problem as long as it takes, to get up after failure and try again. And in real life, when we face failure, when we confront obstacles, we often don't feel that way. We feel overcome. We feel overwhelmed. We feel anxious, maybe depressed, frustrated, or cynical. We never have those feelings when we're playing games. They just don't exist in games. So that's what I wanted to study when I was a graduate student. What about games makes it impossible to feel that we can't achieve everything? How can we take those feelings from games and apply them to real-world work? So I looked at games like World of Warcraft, which is really the ideal collaborative problem-solving environment. And I started to notice a few things that make epic wins so possible in online worlds? So the first thing is, whenever you show up in one of these online games, especially in World of Warcraft, there are lots and lots of different characters who are willing to trust you with a world-saving mission right away. But not just any mission. It's a mission that is perfectly matched with your current level in the game, right? So you can do it. They never give you a challenge that you can't achieve. But it is on the verge of what you're capable of, so you have to try hard. But there's no unemployment in World of Warcraft. There's no sitting around wringing your hands. There's always something specific and important to be done. And there are also tons of collaborators everywhere you go. Hundreds of thousands of people ready to work with you to achieve your epic mission. That's not something we have in real life that easily. The sense that at our fingertips are tons of collaborators. And also there's this epic story, this inspiring story of why we're there and what we're doing. And then we get all this positive feedback. You guys have heard of leveling up and +1 strength and +1 intelligence. We don't get that kind of constant feedback in real life. When I get off the stage, I'm not going to have +1 speaking and +1 crazy idea, +20 crazy idea. I don't get that feedback in real life. Now, the problem with collaborative online environments like World of Warcraft is that it's so satisfying to be on the verge of an epic win all the time that we decide to spend all our time in these game worlds. It's just better than reality. So far, collectively, all the World of Warcraft gamers have spent 5.93 million years solving the virtual problems of Azeroth. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It might sound like it's a bad thing. But to put that in context, 5.93 million years ago was when our earliest primate human ancestors stood up. That was the first upright primate. Okay, so when we talk about how much time we're currently investing in playing games, the only way it makes sense to even think about it is to talk about time at the magnitude of human evolution, which is an extraordinary thing, but it's also apt, because it turns out that by spending all this time playing games, we're actually changing what we are capable of as human beings. We're evolving to be a more collaborative and hardy species. This is true, I believe this. So consider this really interesting statistic. It was recently published by a researcher at Carnegie Mellon University. The average young person today in a country with a strong gamer culture will have spent 10,000 hours playing online games by the age of 21. Now, 10,000 hours is a really interesting number for two reasons. First of all, for children in the United States, 10,080 hours is the exact amount of time you will spend in school from 5th grade to high school graduation if you have perfect attendance. So we have an entire parallel track of education going on where young people are learning as much about what it takes to be a good gamer as they're learning about everything else in school. Now, some of you have probably read Malcolm Gladwell's new book, Outliers. So you would have heard of his theory of success, the 10,000-hour theory of success. It's based on this great cognitive science research that if we can master 10,000 hours of effortful study at anything by the age of 21, we will be virtuosos at it. We will be as good at whatever we do as the greatest people in the world. And so now what we're looking at is an entire generation of young people who are virtuoso gamers. So the big question is, what exactly are gamers getting so good at? Because if we could figure that out, we would have a virtually unprecedented human resource on our hands. This is how many people we now have in the world who spend at least an hour a day playing online games. These are our virtuoso gamers. 500 million people who are extraordinarily good at something. And in the next decade, we're going to have another billion gamers who are extraordinarily good at whatever that is. If you don't know it already, this is coming. The game industry is developing consoles that are low energy and that work with the wireless phone networks instead of broadband internet, so that gamers all over the world, particularly in India, China, Brazil, can get online. They expect 1 billion more gamers in the next decade. So it'll bring us up to 1.5 billion gamers. So I've started to think about what these games are making us virtuosos at. Here are the 4 things I came up with. The first is urgent optimism. Okay, think of this as extreme self-motivation. Urgent optimism is the desire to act immediately to tackle an obstacle, combined with the belief that we have a reasonable hope of success. Gamers always believe that an epic win is possible and that it's always worth trying, and trying now. Gamers don't sit around. Okay, gamers are virtuosos at weaving a tight social fabric. There's a lot of interesting research that shows that we like people better after we play a game with them, even if they've beaten us badly. And the reason is it takes a lot of trust to play a game with someone. We trust that they will spend their time with us, that they will play by the same rules, value the same goal, they'll stay with the game until it's over. And so playing a game together actually builds up bonds and trust and cooperation, and we actually build stronger social relationships as a result. Blissful productivity, I love it. You know, there's a reason why the average World of Warcraft gamer plays for 22 hours a week, kind of a half-time job. It's because we know when we're playing a game that we're actually happier working hard than we are relaxing or hanging out. We know that we are optimized as human beings to do hard and meaningful work, and gamers are willing to work hard all the time if they're given the right work. Finally, epic meaning. Gamers love to be attached to awe-inspiring missions, to human, planetary scale stories. So just one bit of trivia that helps put that into perspective. So you all know Wikipedia, biggest wiki in the world. Second biggest wiki in the world, with nearly 80,000 articles, is the World of Warcraft wiki. 5 million people use it every month. They have compiled more information about World of Warcraft on the internet than any other topic covered on any other wiki in the world. They are building an epic story. They are building an epic knowledge resource about the World of Warcraft. Okay, so these are 4 superpowers that add up to one thing. Gamers are super empowered, hopeful individuals. These are people who believe that they are individually capable of changing the world. And the only problem is they believe that they are capable of changing virtual worlds and not the real world. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve. There's an economist named Edward Castronova whose work is brilliant. He looks at why people are investing so much time and energy and money in online worlds. And he says we're witnessing what amounts to no less than a mass exodus to virtual worlds and online game environments. And he's an economist, so he's rational. And he says, not like me, I'm a game designer, I'm exuberant. But he says that this makes perfect sense. Because gamers can achieve more in online worlds than they can in real life. They can have stronger social relationships in games than they can have in real life. They get better feedback and feel more rewarded in games than they do in real life. So he says, for now, it makes perfect sense for gamers to spend more time in virtual worlds than the real world. Now, I also agree that that is rational for now, but it is not by any means an optimal situation. We have to start making the real world work more like a game. So I take my inspiration from something that happened 2,500 years ago. These are ancient dice made out of sheep's knuckles, right? Before we had awesome game controllers, we had sheep's knuckles. And these represent the first game equipment designed by human beings. And if you're familiar with the work of the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, you might know this history, which is the history of who invented games and why. Herodotus says that games, particularly dice games, were invented in the kingdom of Lydia during a time of famine. Apparently, there was such a severe famine that the king of Lydia decided they had to do something crazy. People were suffering, people were fighting. It was an extreme situation. They needed an extreme solution. So, according to Herodotus, they invented dice games and they set up a kingdom-wide policy. On one day, everybody would eat. And on the next day, everybody would play games. And they would be so immersed in playing the dice games because games are so engaging and immerse us in such satisfying, blissful productivity, they would ignore the fact that they had no food to eat. And then on the next day, they would play games. And on the next day, they would eat. And according to Herodotus, they passed 18 years this way, surviving through a famine by eating on one day and playing games on the next. Now, this is exactly, I think, how we're using games today. We're using games to escape real-world suffering. We're using games to get away from everything that's broken in the real environment, everything that's not satisfying about real life, and we're getting what we need from games. But it doesn't have to end there. This is really exciting. According to Herodotus, after 18 years, the famine wasn't getting better, so the king decided they would play one final dice game. They divided the entire kingdom in half. They played one dice game. And the winners of that game got to go on an epic adventure. They would leave Lydia, and they would go out in search of a new place to live, leaving behind just enough people to survive on the resources that were available, and hopefully to take their civilization somewhere else where they could thrive. Now, this sounds crazy, right? But recently, DNA evidence has shown that the Etruscans, who then led to the Roman Empire, actually share the same DNA as the ancient Lydians. And so recently, scientists have suggested that Herodotus' crazy story is actually true. And geologists have found evidence of a global cooling that lasted for nearly 20 years that could have explained the famine. So this crazy story might be true. They might have actually saved their culture by playing games, escaping to games for 18 years, and then been so inspired and knew so much about how to come together with games that they actually saved the entire civilization that way. Okay, we can do that. We've been playing Warcraft since 1994. That was the first real-time strategy game from the World of Warcraft series. That was 16 years ago. They played dice games for 18 years. We've been playing Warcraft for 16 years. I say we are ready for our own epic game. Now, they had half the civilization go off in search of a new world. So that's where I get my 21 billion hours a week of gameplay from. Let's get half of us to agree to spend an hour a day playing games until we solve real-world problems. Now, I know you're asking, how are we going to solve real-world problems in games? Well, that's what I have devoted my work to over the past few years at the Institute for the Future. We have this banner in our offices in Palo Alto, and it expresses our view of how we should try to relate to the future. We do not want to try to predict the future. What we want to do is make the future. We want to imagine the best-case scenario outcome, and then we want to empower people to make that outcome a reality. We want to imagine epic wins, and then give people the means to achieve the epic win. I'm just going to very briefly show you 3 games that I've made that are an attempt to give people the means to create epic wins in their own futures. So this is World Without Oil. We made this game in 2007. This is an online game in which you try to survive an oil shortage. The oil shortage is fictional, but we put enough online content out there for you to believe that it's real and to live your real life as if we've run out of oil. So when you come to the game, you sign up, you tell us where you live, and then we give you real-time news videos, data feeds that show you exactly how much oil costs, what's not available, how food supply is being affected, how transportation is being affected, if schools are closed, if there's rioting. And you have to figure out how you would live your real life as if this were true. And then we ask you to blog about it, to post videos, to post photos. We piloted this game with 1,700 players in 2007, and we've tracked them for the 3 years since. And I can tell you that this is a transformative experience. Nobody wants to change how they live just because it's good for the world or because we're supposed to. But if you immerse them in an epic adventure and tell them, we've run out of oil, this is an amazing story and adventure for you to go on. Challenge yourself to see how you would survive. Most of our players have kept up the habits that they learned in this game. So for the next world-saving game, we decided to aim higher, bigger problem than just peak oil. We did a game called Superstruct at the Institute for the Future. And the premise was a supercomputer has calculated that humans have only 23 years left on the planet. The supercomputer was called the Global Extinction Awareness System, of course. And we asked people to come online, almost like a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. You know Jerry Bruckheimer movies? You form a dream team. You've got the astronaut, the scientist, the ex-convict, and they all have something to do to save the world. But in our game, instead of just having 5 people on the dream team, we said everybody's on the dream team, and it's your job to invent the future of energy, the future of food, the future of health, the future of security, and the future of the social safety net. We had 8,000 people play that game for 8 weeks. They came up with 500 insanely creative solutions that you can go online if you Google Superstruct and see. So finally, the last game, we're launching it March 3rd. This is a game done with the World Bank Institute. If you complete the game, you will be certified by the World Bank Institute as a social innovator, class of 2010, working with universities all over sub-Saharan Africa, and we are inviting them to learn social innovation skills. We've got a graphic novel, we've got leveling up in skills like local insight, knowledge networking, sustainability, vision, and resourcefulness. I would like to invite all of you to please share this game with young people anywhere in the world, particularly in developing areas, who might benefit from coming together to try to start to imagine their own social enterprises to save the world. So I'm going to wrap up now. I want to ask a question. What do you think happens next? We've got all these amazing gamers. We've got these games that are kind of pilots of what we might do, but none of them have saved the real world yet. Well, I hope that you will agree with me that gamers are a human resource that we can use to do real-world work, that games are a powerful platform for change. We have all these amazing superpowers, blissful productivity, the ability to weave a tight social fabric, this feeling of urgent optimism and the desire for epic meaning. I really hope that we can come together to play games that matter, to survive on this planet for another century. And that's my hope, that you will join me in making and playing games like this. When I look forward to the next decade, I know two things for sure: that we can make any future we can imagine, and we can play any games we want. So I say, let the world-changing games begin. Thank you. Thank you.
Now that we've looked at what gamification is, a little bit about its origins, and some of the great thinkers in this field, let's turn our eyes towards identifying other gamification examples all around us. For instance, about a third of web users actually use Bing for search. I know, it's hard to believe. What? Not Google? Unbelievable. So you might not know this, but Microsoft, the company behind the Bing search engine, has this program called Bing Rewards. Bing Rewards lets users earn credits that are redeemable for rewards. Now you may be asking yourself, how can I earn these credits? Two ways. For every 5 searches you conduct using the Bing search engine, you get 1 credit. You can also earn credits by trying out the latest features of Bing. You see where they're going with this? But it gets better though. You can sign up one of 2 ways, either with a Microsoft account or your Facebook account. Of course, once you start participating, they track your searches as well as your demographic info, right? They can start to market to your particular interests based on what you've searched for, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing, even though it feels very Big Brother-y to most. But what's ingenious about this gamified environment is that you can also use the Facebook connection to share your Bing searches with your Facebook friends, too. The idea being that you might be searching for the best vacation spot to visit, and who better to make a recommendation to you than the people you know best. So Bing will scan your social networks for keywords. So let's say you're looking for information about the World Cup. You enter World Cup as your Bing query, and yes, the Bing results show up, but on the right of the screen, you have your social bar that lists all of your friends' posts, which include the term World Cup. Innocuous enough, right? Sure is, but you can also share what you found on the Bing search results page right there with your social networks, which will push a Bing link to your friend's wall or stream. Now, it's not inherently a bad or evil thing. The idea is frankly brilliant, because not only do you win by seeing what your friends think or know about the subject you're searching for, but Microsoft wins by giving you an opportunity to share your discoveries. Discoveries that you made using Bing, not Google. But they've even gone beyond just a simple point system. They've also included status levels too. So when you first start, you're a member. But if you complete the welcome tour, pick a reward and set it as your goal, and then earn 200 credits, which comes out to about 40 searches while signed in, you bump up to the silver level, which gives you a one-time 50 credit bonus. But the status you really want is the gold level, because then you can redeem your credits for prizes at up to 10% discount. For example, one of the rewards is a 1-month membership to Xbox Gold, which is a pretty nice thing for gamers. You get to play the hottest games like Titanfall or Halo on a network with your friends on this cloud-hosted multiplayer platform. Well, normally that would run you 699 credits, but if you're a gold level Binger, it's only going to cost you 679 credits. Now, I know I might seem like I'm, onto their game, but I'm an active user. One of the rewards is 100 gigabytes of storage for a year on Microsoft's OneDrive system, and it only costs 100 credits. So for every 20 searches, I bump up a significant amount of storage space on a system that, frankly, I actually use all the time. So, start looking around for other examples of gamification and how it's slowly permeating your own life. You might be surprised at just how pervasive it is.